Hi, it's Nell, and it is time for a houseplant care video. It's been a while since I've done one, so this one is all about the very popular Spathiphyllum spath or peace lily. Care and growing tips coming your way. So I upload videos here at YouTube on a regular basis, once a week, every now and then twice, but usually once a week, about houseplants, succulents, bromeliads, gardening 101, all that kind of stuff. So if you like that, be sure to come back for more and also hit subscribe because there's a lot more videos coming your way. But first, I want to show you some of the beautiful greenery around my patio here in the Sonoran Desert. That is a Texas olive, and it blooms from early spring right through fall. Some nice trees. There's the pomegranate. It still has a few flowers on it. There's an ocotillo and some saguaros back there and a cholla. I don't know if you can see those, but the birds love it here. It's nice and green after our winter rains, and it's a great place to hang out. Oops, there's a butterfly. Speaking of hanging out, there's Mr. Riley Cat. He likes to take his afternoon naps out here before it gets too blazingly hot. Oh yes, roll over, dear. Good night. So just for fun, I've gathered these plants out on the patio because they are all in the same family as the peace lily. There's the arrowhead plant. Care video coming on that soon. I recently repotted it, doing great. The Pothos Enjoy also got repotted. It's in the same family along with Monstera. This is Bright Light, which is a relatively new one. It's compact. Care video coming on that at some point. And the beautiful anthuriums, which I think make a wonderful house plant. And I love the flowers, and there's actually two flowers coming. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. You might be able to see the red. You know, there's two more flowers coming on them. So the Spathiphyllum or peace lily is in good company with these popular houseplants. So I'm going to run through these points rather quickly. I'm just going to touch on them. There will be more details in the blog post that goes along with this video. So if you are really interested in the peace lily, be sure and check that. The link will be down below in the description box and also on my blog, joyousgarden.com. So Spathiphyllum is the genus, and there are many species and also varieties too. I think there's 30 or 40 of them in the spath genus, but the one I have, I believe, is either Wallacei, which is obviously one of the more compact ones, or it could be Patricia. It came unlabeled, so I don't know. There is one that I know of anyway that is variegated. It's variegated with a white and a green leaf. And as for size, they vary from about 12 inches up to about 5 feet. The taller ones that I know of anyway are Monaloa and Sensation. So these are used as tabletop plants, these smaller ones. And the larger ones actually make a nice wider floor plant. So you have to have some room for it. So say it's 5 feet tall, it's fairly wide. It's not like a narrow Dracaena. So 3 things that make Spathiphyllums or peace lilies very popular is that they are easy to find. Also too, they are not that expensive. And the third, which is probably their big draw, are the flowers. Growth rate. Growth rate depends on the environment you have it in. I am in Tucson, Arizona, where it's very warm, so my plants tend to grow faster than they would if they were in a colder climate. So I would say they are moderate growers in moderate light levels, and in lower light you aren't going to see that much growth at all. So exposure. I think in my experience that they do best in moderate or medium light. They grow more. Mine has a lot of foliage coming on it. If you have it in lower light, it is going to grow much slower, as I said. If they're not in enough light, you don't get them growing, and you also don't get them flowering. If you have them in light that is too high, sun that is too strong, they will burn. So you can place them near but not in a hot window. Just be sure to keep them out of the window. These leaves are fairly thin and they do react to heat and especially a lot of strong sunlight. Watering. This is one plant that will completely droop if it gets dry. So I keep it, what I would say, moderately moist or evenly moist. The top can dry out a little bit, but I like to keep the roots on the slightly moist side because it'll just go whoa, and they will perk up after they droop, but the leaves can show a little bit of damage from that. And actually, when I was an interior scaper, when I worked in the interior landscaping field, I maintained plants in businesses and offices. This was probably the plant that we replaced the most because it would just go eh. It also doesn't like to be soaking wet or sit in water either, but it is one that likes nice regular water. It is warm here, as I said, in Tucson, so I am now watering mine every 5 days. It's in a 6-inch pot too. It's in a smaller pot. In the wintertime, I would probably water it, depending on the light and the temperature, I would probably water it every 10 to 14 days. Oh, and in terms of water quality, which I will touch on more in the post, this one is really sensitive to chlorine and salts in the tap water. I don't water mine with distilled water. I do water it with tap water, but I am in the midst of getting my kitchen remodeled, and I am getting a filter installed in the faucet, so my plants don't show a lot of damage at all, but still I'm going to be happy because it's going to take all that stuff out. Temperature, it does not mind warm temperatures at all. It'll just, I need to be watered more, but if your home, as I say about houseplants, if your home is comfortable for you, it'll be so for your houseplants also. Okay, so let's zoom on in so we can see the pretty foliage on this plant, and we can also check on Riley and see what he's doing. I don't think too much. So anyway, on to humidity. This plant does like humidity. It is native to damp rainforest areas like in Indonesia, the Philippines, and I believe South America too. So what I do is I take it to the kitchen every time I water it, and I wet the leaves, and that makes it happy. Or you can mist your plant, or you can put the plant in a saucer that's filled with pebbles or rock and put some water in there and set the grow pot on top of that. Just make sure it's not submerged in the water. So fertilizing. I think that this plant is one that does like some fertilizing because it does flower. So I fertilize mine in the spring, and then I fertilize it at the beginning of the summer, and then I fertilize it at the end of the summer. And what I use is Eleanor's, I think it's VF11, I think it is, but I just, water it in, and that's what I use. But you can use a balanced houseplant fertilizer also. Something like a 10-10-10 would be just fine. and I usually dilute it to half strength. So if your leaves are showing a lot of big brown spots, one of the causes could be you're fertilizing too often or your fertilizer is too strong. It's a burn, fertilizer burn. Okay, so in terms of soil, it just likes a very rich soil that drains well. It's going to help to hold the moisture a bit, but the excess water will run out. So what I do is I add the cocoa coir chips and the fiber that I usually use, along with organic compost to the potting soil, and that seems to make it happy. And in terms of transplanting, I usually transplant them about maybe every 3 years. If the roots are really coming out of the drain holes, then you want to transplant yours. And spring and summer are the best times to do it. Pruning, the reason that I prune mine is to take off the dead flowers and also to take off any leaves which have turned to yellow or brown, which isn't too often. Now, in terms of propagation, the way that I have propagated this plant, I've only done it one time. It's by division, dividing the plant. You can normally find a fairly clear way to divide it. Mine, I could divide in half and it would be no problem at all. So in terms of cleaning, I just cleaned this one the other day. That's why the leaves are so beautiful. They have a natural shine to them anyway. I didn't put on anything artificial to make them shiny. It's just the plant. But I like to clean my house plants at least once a year because they breathe through the pores in their leaves, and that is necessary for them to. So that's why you don't want to use a leaf shine. And I think I will do a video about how I clean my houseplants, so because I do, and you should be cleaning yours also. So in terms of pests, the two things that I have seen them be infested with are spider mites and mealybugs. Now, that was on commercial accounts, but those are the two things that I'm aware they get, and I have done posts and videos on both of them, so I will leave the link for you, the link to both of those in the post that goes along with this video. So on to the topic of pets, like Riley cat. Oh yes, we're going to be talking about kitty cats. They are considered to be toxic to both cats and dogs. I get my information off the ASPCA website, and what I believe it does, it will make them vomit. It irritates their mouth. I think they can drool, and they can also choke too. And also for us, some people are sensitive to the sap. It will emit a sap if it's broken. So just be careful with that. It hasn't ever bothered me. So that's just one thing for you to be aware of also. Okay, so now on to the big draw of this plant, the flowers. And this here is the spathe, actually. It's a spathe type of flower. This here, and then the flowers are actually on here. But we still call it the flower. And I have 5 open on mine, and I have 3 yet to come. They last anywhere from 3 weeks to about 8 weeks, I found, and mine started blooming at the end of the winter, early spring, and that's when they typically bloom, depending on where you are. They bloom from end of winter, or they can start in late spring, depending on the light in your climate. And I have found that they bloom once a year. Maybe you'll get 2 blooms out of it, but I usually only get 1 every year. And when it's in bloom, I try and avoid drenching the flower with water. As I said, I will spray the foliage in the sink, but I don't do it that way when they are in bloom because I found that it will cause the flower to not last as long. And this could have gone into pruning too, but when you remove this spent flower when it's dead or on the way to dying, I don't do that. I don't take it off there. I go down and I take it all the way down at the base. And you may have noticed that your flowers turn greenish as they age, and that's exactly what it is. It is on the way of on the way out. When it's turning that color, it still looks okay, but you can see how this is all green. And I don't know if this one, I think this one is in the screen. That is, white. This is just the flower getting older. So I'm not going to touch on it here, but I'm going to do some things good to know in the blog, and also brown leaf edges and yellow leaves and all that. I'm going to cover that in the post. I will say that if you see little tiny brown tips appearing, it is just in reaction to the dry air in your home. And I'm going to touch briefly on this topic also, and that is air purifying, because this is billed as a fabulous air purifier. And yes, all plants help the air, but you can't expect to put one spathiphyllum in your home and have it all clean. I've done a post on this with my thoughts on it, because that study was done in a controlled chamber, and our homes are not controlled chambers. Now, in terms of purifying and cleaning and all that, I love plants, you know that. So for me, they purify and they clean my head and my senses. Yes, spathiphyllum, that's you. All right, so 2 important things to know in conclusion about this lovely plant is that you don't want it to dry out, completely dry out, at least not on a regular basis. It can take it a couple times, but if it repeatedly droops and dries, it's going to be a problem. That's when we had to replace them. And also keep it out of hot, direct sun. And as I said, there will be more information for you in the blog post, all written out in categories and all that stuff, so it's really easy to understand. You'll also find more pictures of spathiphyllums, because I've taken quite a few pictures of the plant that's commonly known as peace lily, which, by the way, is not actually a lily. It's just called peace lily. So I hope you have found this video about peace lily care and growing tips to be helpful. It's a great plant. I think you'll love it if you don't have one. And be sure and come back, because I have a lot more videos coming your way. I'm still doing all the houseplant repotting series, so stay tuned for that. And let's see what else. I have to stare at the beautiful Texas olive covered in flowers. Oh yes, let's get out in our gardens, or in this case, into our indoor gardens, and make our worlds a more beautiful place. I thank you for all your likes and your subscribes. I really appreciate them. And I also thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye.